great to have you back.
Lovely to see you again, Commissioner.
Can you remind us about who you are and the Nehrling Gardens?
I'll be happy to. So I'm Angela Withers. I am the board president at the moment or have been for some time, for historic Nehrling Gardens, which is the Florida Heritage Landmark home of Dr. Henry Nehrling, who died in 1929, but he's considered one of the fathers of Florida horticulture. He moved to Florida in 1885. Well, he didn't move. He bought the property then. He would come down in the winters from Wisconsin because he knew he could grow his beloved tropical and subtropical plants that he'd learned about when he lived in Texas. So this is the property we have. Our nonprofit owns the property. We bought it about 13 years ago and are restoring it.
Can you tell us about gardens and its impact on Florida's horticultural scene?
The work that Dr. Nehrling did in Florida over the years, and I say starting in about 1886 was when he first actually came down. For the next years, he would come in the winters and grow plants. He had somebody who lived there. He experimented with plants that people would send him from around the country and from around the world. When he moved his family down in 1902, he became even more involved. He was there full time. And so in those following years, this was a mecca for horticulturists and for tourists to come see what he was growing there. He was experimenting with tropical and subtropical plants, most famously caladiums, amaryllis, palms, and many types of bamboo that he introduced to the country. Very influential on what people started to grow in their gardens in Florida. He figured out what things would grow here, what were appropriate to grow. So the gardens we see today are very much a product of those early experimentations and understanding what did well in this fairly unique environment. So we have seen his influence. When you walk around most people's gardens today, there'll be something there that was something that Henry Nehrling worked with and helped introduce to our Florida gardens.
How do Nehrling Gardens educational workshops and internships help shape young minds towards environmental stewardship?
One of the things that we are most feel is most important is engaging young people, because that's the future. And so we bring in interns. We've had young interns from Valencia College, from Rawlins College, helping us with everything from figuring out how we can get support to clear invasives from our lake, helping us set up a smartphone self-guided tour of the gardens, recording all of the locations and species of the trees on the property. These students, when they come, are immersed in the experience on site, and they can't help but become engaged with what we're trying to do and how important it is that we take care of this Florida environment, and both the wonderful story behind this site and what we are doing with it today. They really begin to get it once they've been there for a while.
The garden was visited by prominent figures like Theodore Roosevelt and Thomas Edison. How do their stories continue to resonate in the garden's legacy?
You know, I think it's always fun when you can make history real, and when we bring young people and adults in and can say, you know, this man corresponded for years with President Theodore Roosevelt. That when Roosevelt came to Florida in the early 1900s, one of the things he ended up doing was the Florida Audubon Society was founded, inspired by him. Henry Nehrling became one of the first board members of Florida Audubon. Thomas Edison, these great thinkers shared a love of inquiring minds and a love of learning and nature and what we could be doing to improve things. Henry worked with Thomas Edison on looking for alternate plant sources of latex and rubber, looking for other fiber sources for his filaments for his light bulbs. So they shared this curiosity, this thinking outside the box. What can we experiment? What can we do? And when you walk through the home of this man and know he was doing this, he was talking to these figures that we consider so significant in the history of the country. And this man was part of that in a very real way, and we have the benefit of his work here today.
How can residents get involved with the garden either through volunteering or collaborative efforts?
There are so many ways that our community can get involved. And the best thing really is to go to our website and just contact us and say, I'm interested in gardening, or I'd like to help you when you restore the porch on the back, or things like this. We've collaborated with businesses in the community who've helped us anywhere from places like Florida Paints when we were restoring the old house and getting rid of the old lead-based paints. We've had numbers of businesses who will sponsor our events. We love to have that kind of thing, but very much hands-on. We have remarkable volunteers who come in every Wednesday. We laughingly call them our Wednesday readers, but remarkable people. One's a retired Disney horticulturalist, one's a retired writer, another is a musician, but they come and spend Wednesdays helping pull weeds, propagate plants, put in new plants, under the wonderful leadership of our remarkable garden team leader. So you get to know people. It's great fun if you come and volunteer regularly. We enjoy having people become a part of our organization.
You have a century-old tree canopy?
Many of the trees do date back to the time that Henry Nehrling was there. When he first bought the property, it was largely piney uplands with the Florida longleaf pines. And the great thing about the house is it's all built from heart pine, which was the center of the old growth Florida longleaf pines. Sadly, we have very few of those left because they were used for all of the construction of buildings in those early times. But as he settled there and improved the site, he loved magnolias, he loved the live oaks and those trees. Those have since grown up and form a wonderful canopy. Sadly, the hurricanes over the last few years have removed a few of them, so now we are back to having more sunlight than we used to have. But that's what gardens are about. Gardens are about change. And so we're having fun now putting in some of the things that require more light. Over the years, the canopy had become so dense that it was almost all shade. But we have fabulous arborists who come, and anytime we're concerned about a tree, we'll come and look at it. Sadly, we lost one. We brought in the very best people in Orange County to look at our huge 250-year-old Florida longleaf pine that was still on the site. And it started all of a sudden looking bad, and it had been infested with a type of beetle, and the environment for it had changed. The lakes had flooded. And we did everything we could, but tragically, it did subsequently have to be taken down.
What is your most entertaining and educational event or tour that families and young children can participate in?
That's a bit of a hard one. There's probably two things I'd answer with that. Once a year, we do a wonderful holiday amaryllis festival at the gardens, and we generally have Santa there on the front porch with the house all decorated. We have the birds from owls and other birds of prey from the Avian Reconditioning Centre. We have wonderful nature activities for children, and we have music, and we have artists painting in the gardens. And people just love to come, bring their families, stroll around, let the kids enjoy the activities. But the other thing is that everybody just loves, families just love wandering around the gardens. I think there are not many places where the kids can run off and watch the lizards climbing over the logs, hear the hawks in the trees, or the visiting birds that are migrating through from the north, where they can see a real variety of plants, not just formally planted beds, but they can go around a bend and discover our fairy garden. We have a really cool fairy garden. Or they can discover the old fallen tree that a chainsaw artist has carved an alligator and some owls and some turtles. Fascinating plants that you don't see typically in more formal gardens. We are an exploration garden, and that's what I think young people especially respond to.
Can you tell us about any annual events that you have or projects that the viewers can get involved with?
Well, twice a year we do a plant sale from plants that have been propagated in our gardens or in our garden teams' home gardens that are great fun to come to, because you can say, oh, well, maybe I could grow that at my house. Look how well it does here. So those are always fun. We do a couple of wonderful events in the spring and in the fall. Our Owl Prowl event in the fall is really popular because it's an evening art and wine stroll. And we have artists painting through the gardens, we have music, we have stations where you can sample beer and wines and food and nibbles, and we have an auction set up of wonderful art, mostly focused on nature themes.
Can you share with our viewers how to reach out to you and how to stay in touch and get involved?
We would love to have you. If you go to our website, there's information there about what we're doing. There's the calendar that says about anything upcoming, and you can just go to the contact and contact us, or just email info@nehrlinggardens.org. We always respond. We have a wonderful administrative coordinator who's our only official staff person, and she makes sure we get all the messages. I get them directly as well, and we'll follow up. And if you want to organize a tour, if you want to get involved with helping with an event, or come join the garden team, or if you have an expertise on old houses, on restoration, we would love to have you share that expertise. So just go to the website or email us, and we will certainly be in touch and see how you might want to bring your children to get involved. We do a lot with the scouting groups, so that's always a great way. We've had wonderful families and volunteers join us after their son or daughter was involved in a scouting group originally, and have now become sort of part of our Nehrling Gardens family.
Right. So we have here with us some soil, a pot, and some flower seeds.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and plant these seeds, and while we're doing that, how about you share with us what the joys are of gardening?
The joys of gardening. I think one of the things we've forgotten a little bit, these are the seeds here. Thank you for putting some dirt in there. So what we're going to do here is probably spread it out a little bit. There we go. And typically with seeds, you just want to sprinkle them close to the surface. And depending on the type of seed, and I'm not sure about what these are, maybe we should look. These are nasturtiums, and I have not actually grown them for a while. So I think we need to just cover with a 1/2 inch of soil. That's what I would have done, but just thought I'd check. So typically you'll sprinkle them in, and then we'll cover them with a bit of soil. I think the thing about gardening is that, number one, just getting outdoors and working with your hands is the most absorbing. Whatever you were worried about just disappears into the background, and you just start looking at what you're doing, and you're using your energy. It's great exercise. So now we'll sprinkle a bit. There we go. So we'll go a little bit and just sprinkle about 1/2 inch. You don't want too much, so it hasn't here. There we go. And then when you see things grow, it's like a baby, and you are so excited. I think one of the things that we miss out if we have our landscapers come in and change out the flowers every spring and fall and just do that. One of the joys of actually gardening is seeing things grow and the cycle. If they all just get changed out when they're not pretty anymore, you aren't the one who's gone in there and said, they're not looking so good. Maybe it is time to move them to another location or dig up the roots. And then when the new things that you've planted come up, it's like, wow, it's not just, here's a perfect plant that we're putting in the garden. It's yours, and you've seen how it changed from that little thing into something spectacular. There's nothing like it.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you. We at the Garden so appreciate, Commissioner, that you are allowing us to share what we have with the community. We do hope people will follow up.
Thank you. If you're enjoying this show, please subscribe to our channel and follow our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts.